In a world in flames, she's there to collect her bounty. And just don't call her babe. Hello and welcome to the weekly vmcampos Comic Book Club. I'm your host, vmcampos. This is the series where I review a comic book, new or old, from my collection. This week I'm talking about Comics Greatest World, Steel Harbor, Week 1, Barb Wire. Published by Dark Horse Comics in 1993. Comics Greatest World was Dark Horse Comics' attempt at creating a shared universe with a variety of characters, and a new comic published every week for 16 weeks. Some of these characters were very forgettable, and some of the art was hit and miss, and most have faded into obscurity. There were very few of them that actually survived the comics crash of the 90s. Ghost was one of the ones that did, and to some extent also X as sort of the face of Comics Greatest World, and Barb Wire. There were various locations where each title took place. This one was Steel Harbor. There was also Arcadia and Golden City and the Vortex. It was a kind of a cool concept for a shared universe. Each issue was $1 and was published every week, 4 weeks per city, per location, and they introduced one certain character. At the beginning also, there was this story tying everything together, written by Mike Richardson, founder of Dark Horse Comics, art by Lee Weeks. So one story kind of tying everything together in the 30s and the 40s about how is it affecting modern times in the 90s. There were a variety of artists and writers on the various titles. The art was kind of hit and miss. I'm rereading the whole series, and I can see that I really like the art in the Arcadia series. The art in Steel Harbor is pretty good. Golden City was not that enjoyable, and I haven't gotten to Vortex yet. I haven't seen those comics in years, 30 years. Where does the time go? Now, Barb Wire may also sound familiar because, hey, wasn't she a movie star? That's right, Pamela Anderson played Barb Wire back in the 90s before the rise of the current superhero movie craze. As I said, most of the characters didn't really make it past the comics crash. Barb Wire was one that did. Eventually, she got her own series and several throughout the years. We might look at this one also a little bit later. It's got some cool Adam Warren cover art. But in this key issue of her debut origin, let's take a quick look. So, cover, first of all. This is Dave Dorman art. Dorman also did the cover for Ghost, and I know Dorman more for his Star Wars art that he would do also at Dark Horse Comics. We get a sense of what this comic is right away. Badass babes with big guns in a grungy city. There's a fun sense of motion right here with all of these spent bullets flying everywhere. She's blasting some bad guy. Hey, wait a minute, you gotta capture them for your bounty. Don't just blast them. Yep, she's a bounty hunter in Steel Harbor. And when you're hunting the bad guys, you need to look stylish. So, pretty fun cover. Interior art is not by Dave Dorman. It is by Paul Gulacy. Gulacy, who had been in comics for a few decades by the time he works on this story in Dark Horse, does the pencils. The other credits here. So we've got script Chris Warner, pencils Paul Gulacy, inks Dan Davis, letters Clem Robbins, etc. We've got other artists working on other parts of the art. Oh yeah, and then the starting story again. This is taking place in 1947, and so far up to this week, this is the 9th installment of something that happened in the 40s, which ties into part 4 of Comics Greatest World, taking place in the Vortex. Just tiny snippets of a story that you need the whole 16 issues to really understand. Then the main story starts. Now, on some of the other books, when it had, okay, this is 1947, and then we have the present. This one doesn't. It just says, yep, here we are. This is what's going on. A dilapidated city, not too different from New York City or Detroit. But it's her city, Barb Wire City. And Barb Wire is introduced with all her assets. Looks like the circus is in town. I love a parade because there's some weird Mad Max kind of guys coming to cause trouble. This weird guy with like no pupils, ignition, and he kind of speaks in the third person and in weird ways. So they're here ready to destroy stuff. Barb Wire is not tonight, boys. Check out my big gun. Well, it fires some weird electromagnetic pulse so that she can capture the bad guys, and, she's a bounty hunter, so she needs the body to get the bounty. She turns in those guys to try to get her bounty. There's a bit of a hassle about it all, and wouldn't you know it, the legal system fails again, and he's released within minutes because of Mesmeration Eclipse. Yes, that is her name, and yes, that is her outfit. So he gets released right away, back on the streets. Oh, I forgot to mention over here, there's also this other through line happening throughout the comics greatest world where these weird techno-religious guys phase in and out of reality and comment and stuff, and sometimes they interact, usually they don't. But they're looking for the unholy one. So I wonder if these guys tie into the other story that happened in the other time period. I wonder. Anyway, in the current time period, Ignition gets away. He goes back with his thugs. Hey, didn't the other guys get arrested too? Well, I guess everyone got freed. She's a really good lawyer. And so they want revenge from Barb Wire, of course. So we take a little interlude where we go see that Barb Wire is not only an entrepreneur of bounty hunting skills, but a bar owner. Hammerhead Bar and Grill. It's her bar that she's got to do the bouncing as well. And there's lots of bouncing. Underground, she's got her full arsenal, kind of Punisher style, with a bunch of cool vehicles. One of them gets destroyed when the Ignition crew shows up again, and then the issue's over. Yeah, one thing that I don't like about the Comics Greatest World intros is that these are shorter than regular comics. Regular comics are about 24 pages. This is missing about 10 pages, but we get enough of a story, so then we can move on to the next part of things. Continued in next week's Comics Greatest World, The Machine, where brand new characters introduced. The Machine, covered by Mike Mignola. Interior's not. And we get a final splash over here, which would look amazing on a t-shirt, and a little quote. These are cool because they kind of tie together the story as well. What has our city become when vigilantes and bounty hunters are accorded the same respect and authority rightfully due to the police and city officials? And that is quoted by Faith Perdue, Steel Harbor Alderwoman. And then it ends with a contest to enter, and a kind of a preview of the other books as well. Arcadia, Steel Harbor, Golden City, and The Vortex. So, fun story, fun short story, introducing the character visually. Okay, this is cardboard cover rather than the sort of cheaper quality covers, and the interior paper is also better quality. Ink printing is nice and bright. The colors look very nice and bright. So they really went all out. For that $1, it's less pages, but yes, it's better quality of a comic. Nice deep blacks, gradation in colors, and it's done pretty well. If you notice also, it's black borders or black gutters mostly throughout, except when we change here and there, but that's another mark of 90s comics, that they could afford to print on black paper. Gulacy's art is pretty good overall. Some great art and posing and scenery here and there. Some of those Golden City backgrounds just were fading away into gradients. Kind of embarrassing. But over here we've got actual environments that we can enjoy in the backgrounds. Very busy panel layouts here and there to just cram in a lot of story. Some things are more realistic, some things are more cartoony, so it's a little inconsistent there. But we get a general sense of this world and the characters and action and such. Story-wise, well, pause it and read it on your own. It's an introduction to the characters, her attitudes and foibles. There's some action and then revenge, and then it's over with a preview of coming soon. It's been really fun to revisit these Comics Greatest World comics. After all, there's only 16 of them in the initial run. It's kind of a breezy read overall. And as I said, this character went on to have her own series compared to a bunch of the other characters that kind of went nowhere. She had her own series after making a cameo in a different comic for a little bit. And then we established the "Don't Call Me Babe" trope from her. This particular issue was published about a year later in 1994. It's got the cardstock cover again, also foil, because, yeah, it was the 90s. But the interior paper goes back to newsprint that's a little cheaper, not as coated or glossy as the one-shot, but still better than the regular newsprint. The artist also changes. In this, we've got Lee Moder as penciler and Ande Parks as inks, and John Arcudi does the script. So I kind of noticed also that the printing is subdued. That's not pure black that I see in most of these pages. It is slightly not pure black, and I don't know if that's my printing or that's what they chose to do in this particular issue. And I kind of like it. The colors aren't as bright and vibrant like on the one-shot because the paper's not so bright and vibrant. But we still got interesting panel layouts. We got this cartoony style that works pretty well with some realism, nice panel layouts and such. Oh yeah, and then the ads. I love the ads from back in the day, and this reminds us that they were doing these cards for a while in the 90s. That was the hot thing, so of course we had cards for Comics Greatest World. This was also the time that Dark Horse held the license for Star Wars, and those were the good old days with all of these Tales of the Jedi and side stories really building up the world of Star Wars with some amazing art. And so, yeah, the first issue is pretty fun. It recaps a couple of things, starts out some new stories, got some new characters, lots of action. And because by this time Comics Greatest World had been going on for a bit, now they're starting to kind of put these letters columns and a checklist of things. These are the things that were debuting in June 94. Has it already been 30 years since Out of the Vortex number 8 debuted? Wow, time flies. Other characters that are totally memorable now, 30 years later, like Nucleus. She's a walking battery for those who know how to tap into the power. Count on her to pump you up. Not problematic at all. And then the main story here, I love that action right here. She's never caught unawares. What's that? Epic hair. Yep, so this is also a fun first issue for the regular series, which is the full 24 pages. Lots of action, lots of art, lots of explosions, and comedy. So yeah, this is a character that went on to become a movie star with Pamela Anderson in the 90s. I don't remember if this guy was in the movie, but I kind of doubt it. You can tell it's the 90s because that computer is huge and there's a bunch of CD-ROMs there. This is also the time that more manga was making it to the US, thanks to Dark Horse, Viz, and others, who remind us to engage your cyber senses, order Intron Depot. And in the 90s, it was the best of time and it was the worst of times. There were a variety of interesting comics debuting and crashing and selling millions of copies. It was such a vibe at that time. Oh yeah, I remember that when Dark Horse also had the license to Aliens. But at the moment, we're talking about Barb Wire. So what do you think? Did you ever read any of the Comics Greatest World titles? Did you pick up one or two or read the whole thing? Are you interested in reviewing that classic series from the 90s? Was Barb Wire your favorite character from that shared universe? Did you ever watch the movie? Did you pause it and rewind it over and over for that certain scene? You can admit it, because we all fell in love with that babe from Steel Harbor.
Don't call me babe.
So this week I read Comics Greatest World, Steel Harbor Week 1, Barb Wire, published by Dark Horse Comics in 1993. This has been the weekly VM Campos Comic Book Club, and I'll see you next week.